This is Beyond Species, a podcast exploring issues around speciesism and the struggle to dismantle it. Welcome to the episode. I'm your host, Tove Fusti. In this episode, we hear from Elisabeth. Elisabeth's activism has a focus on research and working with non-human animals from the wild. She has worked extensively with conservation groups, and we hear from her about the complexities of conservation work, most of which doesn't take an anti-speciesist approach. We learn that ethics can sometimes be a grey area, which leaves questions unanswered. Activists and the movement as a whole need to consider carefully how we care for non-human animals from the wild and the implications of doing so. Okay, do you want to start by giving us an introduction to your activism?
So I'm running a website which is called ethosandempathy.org, and basically through this website we are publishing articles that are related to speciesism, animal rights, to environmental issues, and some humanitarian issues also. So we are translating them in Greek with the help of some volunteers. Without them, it could really not be easy to do that. Because many people in Greece, although they know English, it's not easy for them to read, difficult stuff in English. And in the beginning, with this initiative, Ethos and Empathy, there were also some actions taking place, but I was living in Greece back then. And we were many people. We believed in a vegan world. And then, the time passed and things changed. So, although we did organize a very successful big march for animal rights, it was the first official, let's say, when all the animal rights were taking place. And it was 1,000 people. But it was the moment that I realized that, okay, we did it, and now what? What did we achieve at that point? And also, I was living far away from the cities, and I could not really physically do many things. So I focused on the website, and the activism is my life. So there are so many things that I'm doing that they don't have to do with ethos and empathy. Like, for example, because of my experience with wild animals, there are some cases of monkeys who are illegally owned by some people in Greece, which in the majority of the cases they wanted to help, so they took them from worst situation, but still they are living in cages. And we are trying to do all the paperwork and all the communication with the Stichting App, which is in the Netherlands, the rescue center I was working at. And we already last year sent one monkey, and this year we are trying to send another 4 monkeys. And one day is monkeys, the other day is dogs, the other day is the website. Yesterday I received an email to run a campaign, which I will indeed do, and it has to do with to the end of fishing.
Okay.
So things are many, and the one comes after the other, and it never stops.
Yeah, I suppose doing activism, there's never a shortage of things to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So with the monkeys, then let me just make sure I've got that right. So people have, I guess, rescued these monkeys
Yeah,
from pretty bad positions, and then they don't really know how to take care of them.
yeah, something
And
like that.
so, yeah, so you arrange to transfer them to is it like a sanctuary or?
Yeah, it's a rescue center in the Netherlands. It's a very big
Okay.
one, and I have worked there for 5 months on 2014. And the same place has in Spain a very big rescue center for felines.
Okay.
Um, But the one in the Netherlands, I have seen how it works, and they are doing really good job. So for me,
Mm.
if someone tells me, "Oh my God, I found a monkey, what am I going to do?" This is the first place I would communicate to ask to take it, because they take them there in the quarantine in the beginning, and after some time they put them, depending the species, in a specific department. And for example, the one that we saved last year, he has never lived with another individual of the same species. So now it's the transition period, and it's been many months until now. He doesn't accept, unfortunately, the other individual. It doesn't go well
Mm.
because there are two males and they are trying to introduce the one to the other. But the ones that we now are trying to send, they are also the same species. So maybe because there are two females, it will help the other two that are already
Mhm.
there. Unfortunately, this place at the end, well, although they try to send all the animals in big sanctuaries, in many cases they are ending up in some zoos, and they are
Mm.
not. Well, there are some zoos that they are considered good zoos. Of course, I
Mm.
don't accept this thinking, but it's true that when I was working there, I went to a specific place called zoo in the Netherlands, and it was full of monkeys, and there were no cages. The monkeys, they were really free, and it's very weird to explain it, but it's still a zoo because people are paying to enter. So
Yeah.
so although they are doing really good job, and if you find an animal in a cage living in a city, it's better to send it them there. But
Mm.
these animals, they are doomed to live in captivity. They will never be able to go back to nature, unfortunately.
Are there some animals, because you often hear zoos saying that, like they've got breeding programs and things like that, and I guess maybe some of them take in animals through other ways like that. Are there some animals that are? I mean, is it true that wild animals can be rehabilitated and sent back into the wild, or?
Well, it can happen, but it can happen with animals that not with animals that they live the whole life in a laboratory, not with animals that they
Mm.
have been taken away when they were babies. No, this kind of animals, it's impossible. If you leave them out there, they will not know how to be independent, unfortunately. And also with
Mm.
dolphins, the only dolphins that you can leave back to the sea are the ones that they have been captured some months ago, and it's very recent for them, so they know how to go back to be dependent.
Mm.
Unfortunately, the majority of them, they are dependent on us, so we need to have these places, and this is the biggest dilemma, if you want my opinion, when you are vegan
Mm.
and you want to help animals and the animals are carnivores.
Mm.
What are you feeding them? For example, when I was there, one specific species of monkeys, the tamarins, I think. They once a week we needed to give them alive insects, one specific big
Mm.
insect which is like a stick, and it was horrible for me. I never did it. I said no, I'm not gonna do that. No,
Mm.
and although it's a place that, for example, they use only cruelty-free cleaning products and the food is vegetarian, at least maybe now it's vegan, I don't know. Many things are close to our mentality, but now if you tell me, because of my degrees, I can go and work in sanctuaries with wild animals that are carnivores, but it's impossible for me for reasons of ethics. I cannot give as I was giving when I was in the beginning, when I was working at the zoo as a volunteer. We were giving to the lions chicken,
Mm.
and to the wolves and to the lynx. So I would never be able to do that today. But
Mm.
it's a big dilemma. So there are people who are vegan and they are helping animals who are carnivores, and they have to give meat, and this is very hard.
Mm. And when you were working at the zoo, were you vegan then or
No,
not?
no, of course not. I was just a person who loved animals my whole life. So at some point I said, I want to do something with animals. And someone told me, hey, you can go there as a volunteer. So I went. At that time, in my mind, zoos were something, good because they were helping the biodiversity. This was my idea. And then
Mm.
I went there. And in 3 months, I realized how everything works and that it's a big business. I experienced many stuff that they were not nice, unethical, and at the same time, I experienced stuff that at the time I was thinking that they are cool because, for example, I could take the baby pumas in my arms and take some photos with
Mm.
them, and I could feed the wolves from my hand. But at some point, I realized that this is really not helping the animals. That I saw the owner of the park how he was taking the babies to the television, and he was totally using them to bring more people,
Mm.
and we had to give live worms to the
Mm.
monkeys to eat them. And the worst part was that they were bringing live chickens, baby chickens, and they were putting them in the fridge, and they were dying in the fridge, the refrigerator.
Wow.
And I was really shocked. Yeah.
Jesus, there's no
Yeah.
need for that. Is
Yeah.
there?
No, there is really no need for that. And also, we were feeding the lion sometimes with chicken, which was green because it was expired
Mm.
and it was donated by the supermarket. And all the workers there, they really believe that things are really great there. But I was experiencing every day how not great are the things. And at some
Mm.
point, I left. And some months after, I watched Earthlings and I went vegetarian. And yeah, at the same time, I started to go and volunteer in wild animal organizations that they are helping them.
Mhm.
And I realized the difference between helping animals and using animals. So,
Mm.
because in the zoo, we could hug them, we could pet them, we could do everything as if they are dogs and cats.
Mm.
And when you go to a decent, serious organization, the first thing they will tell you is hands-off policy.
Mm.
So you are not allowed to touch the animal. And for me, it was shocking because I was like, no, it was a baby seal at the time. And I really
Mm.
wanted to pet the baby seal, but they told me no, because the animal should not get used to humans. So it's only two specific persons who will touch the animal. And I was there just, preparing the food and helping during the force feeding, because unfortunately you have to do force feeding when they are very young.
Mhm.
And then with the cleaning, and that was it. There was no photos with the animals. And but after everything finished, after me and some other months with other volunteers, when you see the video of the animal going back to the sea, and
Mm.
you hear the news that months are passing and the animal is around the country in the sea, this is really the best you can do for the animals. You don't have to hug them, you don't have to see photos of yourself with them. You just
Mm.
want them to be free and happy.
Mhm. Mm. Yeah. Well, yeah, that sounds like definitely the right approach. So, when you say you worked with kind of organizations that were
Mm.
helping wild animals, were a lot of those kind of like the standard charities, like kind of big name charities or things like that, or were they more kind of smaller organizations,
They were local, so they were Greek and
local?
small
Mm.
ones,
Mhm.
because Greece is considered as a hotspot biodiversity. Of course, this
Okay.
now it's a speciesist way of
Mm.
saying about it, but Greece has many different species, and so there are many organizations. We have some for bears and wolves. We have some for seals. We have some for marine turtles. We have several for birds and small wild mammals. There are
Mm.
many different, but all of them they are local. They are small.
Mm.
So me personally, I was working with marine turtles for 3 months, and also I experienced many releases of them because it's going very well with the marine turtles.
Mm.
And once with a baby seal, and some days with birds. This was all of them they all were in Greece. And then in the Netherlands with the monkeys and the small mammals. So the
Mm.
biggest for me is the one in the Netherlands.
Mm. And did you ever work with dolphins? Because you mentioned dolphins earlier.
No, it was the dream of my life to work with
Okay.
dolphins and cetaceans. But I have done observation of dolphins and sperm whales because there is a
Mhm.
great organization in Greece and they are doing research, scientific research. So every year they go with a boat in the Ionian Sea mostly,
Mhm.
and they are finding again and again, they're trying to find the same sperm whales and the same dolphins. So they are doing photo identification. And it
Mm.
was a 10 day trip during which, I must say, I learned why I shouldn't go to the dolphinaria, because before, I have been in my life. When I traveled in Valencia, it was 2006, I think, and I was in Dolphinaria, and I thought that they were really happy, and now I feel that I was such an idiot. But
Mm.
someone had to tell me this, and it was at that moment that they explained me that no, they are not happy at all, and they are captive, and all the reality behind that. So yeah, the only thing I have done with dolphins was this, and then mm, after all these years, because this specific zoo that I was at some point opened the dolphinaria,
Mhm.
and from that moment that it opened, we are fighting against it. But the fight is almost pointless because Greece is very corrupted, unfortunately. And no matter how much we try, organizations, citizens, even authorities, they
Mm.
have received so many fines, but they just pay the millions and they keep working. And we have a law in Greece that it's saying that it's illegal to use animals. So, for example, we don't have circuses in Greece since many years ago, and this is something that we are very proud of. But at the same time, the Dolphinaria is an aquatic
Mhm.
circus. So
Mhm.
this works, but the guy is using different words. He's saying that he's doing educational,
Mhm.
projects, and of course, no one accepts this. So at some point, I realized that no matter how much we fight, nothing will change. We need to educate people to stop going there. So we did. I coordinated with one more woman the production of the TV spot against dolphin captivity, and the TV spot it's on the website, also on the homepage. And we are still trying, we are still fighting to make it go in the television, because
Mm.
they asked us to change some stuff, to not say some things, so much to be politically correct, all this.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
it has been viral in the internet from the moment it went out, and the page has 12,000 followers.
Mm.
But in schools, for example, only specific schools with people, professors who take the initiative, they have been shown. And the biggest problem is the schools, because specifically this place every day has so many schools, and this is the main income.
Okay. Yeah.
So if it doesn't go in the television, unfortunately, I still see that internet is not so strong as we think. The television is still stronger.
Yeah, I definitely think that as well. Like I think we because social media is so prevalent, right? And everyone's always on their phones that we think, oh, this must be the most kind of
Yeah.
impactful
Mm.
way because you can get right into someone's phone. But I think the mainstream media still has so much influence. And I don't know if it's just because it is like this, it just, it's so, it's almost like an established voice of authority in a way, it represents,
Yeah.
at least we think it represents the mainstream views on things, so it can influence people. But yeah,
I was not expecting it to be like this,
mm,
2020. Still so much power to the television. I really was not expecting it.
mm,
I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I was actually listening to something earlier today, a podcast, and it was about, well, it was to do with the internet anyway, and kind of how when the internet first came about, people were really pleased that finally there would be a way for people for it to be truly democratic,
Mm,
and the internet was free.
mm,
So, but obviously when you look at what the internet is now, it's Google,
mm.
Facebook,
Yeah,
it's just big corporates that
yeah,
own the whole thing,
it's
so
true.
it's not free at all.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. my degree is on biodiversity conservation, and I did not work as a conservator because, yes, it is speciesist mainly. The only part of biodiversity conservation which is not speciesist is a compassionate conservation, it's called. And it's kind of a movement inside the scientific, world, and it started from Australia. But of course, there is a debate. You can find online publications that they are saying arguments against the compassionate approach. And yeah, because the conservationists, they care about ecosystems, they care about species, they don't care about individuals. So in the conservation biodiversity, there is, for example, one of the ways to manage problems in the nature is culling,
Mm.
hunting.
Yeah.
And this is the reason also that I didn't have a good grade when I had to pass the exams, because I needed to give the answer that we have to kill the wild boars, but I didn't give
Mm.
this answer. My answer was totally anti-speciesist, but of
Mm-hmm.
course it was not accepted. And
Mm.
I was the only vegetarian there, me and two girls, and the one stopped. So yeah, we were two among
Mm.
14, two vegetarians among 14 people. And
Mm.
still today, I don't think any of them, cares. They all are scientists, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, it was very disappointing for me because I remember one of the days that we had one top professor in Greece, in Lesbos, and he was saying that you cannot combine science and activism. And it was very disappointing for me because I
Mm.
was an activist. And yeah, I did my research after. It was on bears and wolves, if they were using the crossing structures that they have been made on top of the highway. But okay, for example, during my research, I was having cameras and I was, trapping in the cameras photos. And there were
Mm.
many nights that I could see stray dogs, abandoned hunting dogs, that they were very thin. And normally I should leave food the next day if they come by. But you
Mm.
cannot, you are not allowed because you will change the information, the data.
Yeah.
And yeah, I never worked as a conservator. No, it's
Mm-hmm.
really speciesist. But okay, two
Mm.
years ago, I found out the compassionate conservation, and there are now organizations that they are doing work, scientific work, which is not specifically on conservation. In general, trying to help nature, like animal ethics, for which I worked last year. These guys, they are all of them anti-speciesist, and if you go on their website, you will find a lot of scientific information, but
Mm-hmm.
there is no speciesism at all in this. So it can happen. It's harder, but it can happen.
Mm. So, in compassionate care, you're saying that the individual's lives matter. How do you manage to care for the individuals while also, looking after the conservation of a species?
Yeah, for example, you will never kill the cats that are killing the birds like they do in Australia. And now, where I am in Madrid, they want to kill all the parrots because maybe the parrots are a threat for other birds. So the compassionate conservationists, they will trap the animals and they will move them to another place.
Okay.
It's very easy. Maybe it's costly, it costs
Mm.
more, maybe it takes more time, but it's the more ethical thing that you can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So yeah, I can imagine that is more costly than just getting someone in to eradicate the animals, and
Mm.
that's
Yeah.
obviously not never going to be a popular option, right, with the mainstream conservation movement.
Yeah, I don't think it will be. It's very hard now. There is a debate. I was not expecting to see a debate, but if you search on it, yeah, there are some people who they have made publication against, because they say that you should measure if what you do is not going to harm more the nature. And but at the end of the day, who are we? Are we God? What do we think that we are? We cannot
Mm.
save everyone at the same time, and all the things that are happening now, they are mostly happening because of us, because we have fucked up everything.
Mm.
So The best thing we can do is to help the animals, but without, you cannot help X species by killing Z species. This is not, this doesn't make
Mm.
sense.
Hmm. Yeah, there's that whole invasive species thing, isn't it? So it's
Yeah.
like, I suppose, how do you preference one species over the other? Because that is just going to be a discrimination based on human uh,
Yeah.
preferences, right? Yeah. So it is
Yeah.
speciesist because they'll say things like, okay, well, this animal was here first,
Mhm.
however many hundred of years ago, whatever, and we're trying to restore the balance. But how much can we really micromanage nature within the human built environment?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And also there are some times that they are trying like the vaquita, it's called. I don't know if it's preferred like that in English. It's a
Mm,
specific cetacean that is the most endangered at the moment. And they are living only in the Gulf of Mexico, if I am correct. There are only 20 individuals, I think, but they are very,
mm,
very sensitive. So they try to capture a couple of them to, to have them somewhere in captivity and to try to breed and
mm,
to conserve the species, but the animals died from the stress. And it was
mm,
a very big debate if this would should happen or not. And I was like, why just leave them? We fucked up. We have to
mm,
see the animal species to get lost. No, we are not. Why should we create stress to two individuals to save the species? No, I don't accept this way of thinking. No,
mm,
it's very invasive. And also the word that you mentioned, invasive, this is
mm,
the most speciesist word in in the scientific community. How the animals can be invasive? We took them in other places. They didn't invade the place.
mm. It's almost like, obviously humans went around, or certain humans went around colonizing the world
Yeah.
and took all these animals, different types of animals with them. So it's almost like, we're blaming the animals for being colonizers,
Mm-hmm.
and when actually, yeah, these invasive species, so called, are a result of colonization. So it's interesting how all that fits together under kind of
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
colonial aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, and many of the animals that they are in other places that they shouldn't be there because they enter in a boat or because they were pets,
Mm,
or it's always, it's very rare to find an animal any be called invasive, and indeed it was the animal itself that
mm,
moved. It's not
mm,
common at all.
mm, mhm.
Yeah.
That's once again humans blaming animals for things that humans have done.
Yeah. But if I may say here, it's a good opportunity to mention a little bit the wild animal suffering field,
Yes, please. Yeah.
because it's something that I also didn't know about it.
Hmm.
So if anyone wants to learn about that, again, in animal ethics website, you can find information. And the thing is that all these years that I was volunteering as an animal caretaker, the majority, well, 9 out of 10, I can say, of the animals that we were taking care, they were all of them having problems due to humans. Okay, so they were anthropogenic suffering in the animals.
Hmm.
But if we think about the numbers of the animals that they are suffering in nature because of natural reasons, they are way more. I mean, what we are doing to the animals is just the cherry of the cake,
Hmm.
because the majority of the animals, they have a very big offspring, and from all these babies, only a few of them will manage to survive. So there is a lot of thirst, there is a lot of hunger, there is a lot of stress. The majority of them are living the whole life being vigilant not to be eaten by another animal,
Hmm.
and there are parasites that they are
Hmm.
creating a lot of suffering. There are diseases, there are natural catastrophes, so many things that they are creating animal suffering, and we have never thought about that. And during the last year that I did the first research for animal ethics, I was trying to see from all these Greek rescue centers which of the animals, how many of these animals they were sick for natural reasons, and the information was really very little. I didn't find a lot. And this is not only in Greece, of course, this is everywhere. The majority of the people, we are so focused, and maybe because also we feel guilty, it makes sense a little bit that we want to help the animals because of what we have done. But for example, marine turtles, they were several marine turtles that they were sick, they had pneumonia or they had depression, but only one specific professor of veterinary worked on these cases. If you go to the Marine Turtle Rescue Center, you will
Mm.
find only the cases that they have eaten plastic or they have been, entangled, or someone abused them. uh,
Hmm.
they didn't have anything to tell me about natural suffering. And I think that what they are trying from animal ethics and also some other people is really important, because when we are finding an animal in nature suffering, even if it's not us who created the suffering, I think that it's our duty to help them, because we
Mm.
have the knowledge, we have all this, the tools also, not only the knowledge. And we should a little bit think also about this kind of suffering, not only the suffering that we are creating.
Mm. So yeah, I just that's I haven't really thought about that much before, and it's definitely not something that is quite commonly spoken about in the kind of vegan movement. That's for sure, because the focus is so heavily on farmed animals.
Yeah.
Um, so with the wild animal suffering, then the way I think that might be progress for the world, obviously with the climate crisis and all the general suffering that's going on for all species, is that we want to, I might be being very naive here, but we want to restore nature back as far as we can to kind of some kind of uh, I don't know. It's never going to go back the way to
Yeah.
how it was before man started doing what we did, right? So that's not possible. But so, for example, I suppose if I think about like a nature reserve, right? There's a place where the wild animals can live freely from um, people interfering with their lives, right? Imagine the ecosystem is
Mm,
pretty good; it's set up okay there, and it's kind
mm.
of as natural as you can get it. So at what point do you think we should intervene then in that area, if in terms of wild animal suffering?
I suppose that first of all, and there are some videos already out there, we can create some shelters, because when it's very cold, or yeah, basically when it's
Hmm.
snowing and raining, they don't have anywhere to go many times. So if you create some shelters, they can go there. One, two. When there is not enough water, you can provide water. This is something we are already doing because of anthropogenic reasons, because of
Hmm.
the climate change. But even if there is no climate change, they are running, they are walking kilometers to find water or to find food.
Hmm.
What I said to the people from animal ethics is that I agree that we have to help the animals, but because there are so many people out there who, when they see wild animals, they want so much to go close to them, uh,
Hmm.
the way we will help the animals, it's very important, because we should not, for example, feed animals. um, Sometimes we feed the animals because we believe that they need, but they don't need, and then the animals are getting used to humans, and
Hmm.
then there is one hunter who is killing the animal, and then
Hmm.
we have created something bad. So I believe
Hmm.
that it's a very thin line. Indeed, we have to help them. Indeed, if there are ways to monitor, for example, to see if there are some animals who are suffering, and then someone can go and
Hmm.
do some checkup. You can anesthetize the animal for a little bit. You can take some blood and you can understand if there is a problem. So if there are
Hmm.
some parasites, for example, you can give something to the animal without even touching. You just leave the animal at some point and you leave some
Hmm.
food in a specific place. They eat it, and this kills the parasites. One. Or yesterday or 2 days ago in Greece, there was a wolf who was stuck in a fence. So the
Hmm.
poor wolf, she couldn't move. She lost a lot of blood until the emergency team went there. If you see the video, it's very sad. And she's there and she's waiting. And 6 hours, I think she was there stuck.
Hmm.
And they went, they anesthetized her. They repaired the wound. And then
Hmm.
they took her to the well, it's something like a rescue center, but after a week or so, she will be back in nature. So this is one more example. There are accidents happening. There is one case I remember now from a baby wild boar who was found disabled. Her
Mm.
back legs were not working. She would never be able to survive in the nature, as you can imagine. So someone rescued her and she lived her life as long as she lived, because unfortunately she didn't live a lot, but she lived in a rescue center. There are some cases of animals that if you leave them, they will die because, a predator will
Mm.
eat them. And if you can
Mhm.
save it, why not save it? If you can help, why
Mm.
not doing it? But not
Mm.
petting, not taking them in our place, not making them going after us. There is a very thin, line between what we can and what we cannot do.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting. It is difficult trying to work out how much intervention there should be because could you say that by someone saving the animal, for example, if you come across the wild animal and you can help them, but if you leave them, then another predator might come along and eat them. Is it better to let nature
Hmm.
do that, or is it being a savior in a way
Hmm.
by stepping in?
Yeah, I
You
understand what you
know?
mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think, as I can think a little bit rational, if you have like healthy animals and then the carnivores who are going after the healthy animals, it's part of nature, okay.
Mm.
But if there is one disabled among them, okay, you can tell me it's again part of nature. But this disabled one had the bad luck to fall from somewhere and not being able to move. If
Mm.
there is another animal that can save it, and this animal is Homo sapiens, why not
Mm.
doing it? Because we have seen also other species helping different
Mm.
species. Okay, so I think
Mhm.
it's normal. But of
Mm.
course, what you are saying, it's something that we should think. I don't have
Mm.
answers for everything. No.
Yeah. That's interesting though that you mentioned that yeah, other species do help other species as well. It's not just humans.
Mm,
Yeah, definitely, it's more to think on. We've not even probably got the tip of the iceberg
yeah,
with that.
exactly.
Okay. So moving on then, still on wild animals, but you mentioned a hands-off policy. I guess we've covered a lot of that in terms of conservation,
Mm,
and I'm just thinking about if there's sanctuaries for wild animals, because obviously it sounds like, well, as time goes on, we're just going to need more. I mean, we never have enough sanctuaries
yeah.
for all the animals who need it right now. Where do the animal rights come in terms of, or maybe not even just wild animals, but animals who are being looked after in sanctuaries? Obviously, you end up with vegans going along to meet the animals and spend time with them. And
Mm,
they're often cuddling cows and
mm,
goats and all this. And there's lots of happy animals. And it's nice to see happy animals finally. Um, but I'm not saying anything about sanctuary owners here because I've no doubt that sanctuary owners know the animals that they care for very well and bear their rights in mind. But thinking about social media and the kind of celebrity culture, the posing with
yeah,
animals thing,
yeah.
you see any issues there?
Of course, of course. This is the biggest issue because, and also it's not always that the sanctuaries are doing the job as they should, because
Mm.
sometimes to make some photos with animals, it's bringing donations, for example. So not all of them are working, if you ask me correctly. The thing is that when we are helping animals, if these animals they cannot go back to the wild, this doesn't mean that we have to make them dogs and cats. This doesn't mean that because they are doomed, that we
Mm.
have to. It's like taking advantage a little bit. Like
Mm.
we can help them, and there are so many big sanctuaries. They can
Mm.
live there with other individuals of the same species, and we can just be there to provide the food, the water, to do a checkup every year. For example, in Greece, this is what they do with the wolves that they cannot be rehabilitated, because with bears you can do it. If you find them babies, you can raise them and then you can let them back in nature. With wolves, in the European continent, I think also in America, it has not been succeeded until now to leave them back in the wild. But this doesn't mean that they are petting the wolves as if they are
mm,
dogs. They
mm,
once a year anesthetize the animal to take the blood to see if everything is okay, and they are just leaving them food and water, and they are living in a very big, you know, place. So
mm,
there are some cameras that you can see through the cameras how they are enjoying their life, but that's it. Why should we start making videos and cuddling and posting them on Instagram and Facebook? And some people say, "Oh, but no, you don't know, maybe because they have been saved from very young age." Yeah, but you can see how many cases of baby lions, at the end the lions ate the humans. And
mm,
then who is dying? Also the animal. You will never see
mm,
an animal killing a human and then to see the animal just live. Whenever a wild animal ate a human, after,
mm,
everyone is killing the animal. Why? For reacting as the instinct are saying.
mm,
So, and I don't know what's happening with vegans lately, but in the past years, I was not seeing vegan people posting this kind of stuff. Lately, I don't know what's happening. Some people tell me yes, but maybe if we show them how the foxes, for example, how they are, that they are like dogs, people will realize that they are not made to become fur.
mm,
No,
mm,
this is not the way. If you ask me, this is not the way to show that. Because specifically
mm,
with foxes, if they get used to humans, it's 90% sure that one hunter will kill them at some point.
mm,
So yeah, there is something wrong going on out there with the social media and the wild animals. It's very sad. They have lost the point.
mm. Yeah. Um, uh, yeah.
Yeah, I know
It
it's,
is.
it's hard.
It's frustrating. It's like I think the vegan movement has lost to the point in a big way
Yeah, yeah,
in terms of we don't really talk about animal rights very much at all, and when we do, um, it's kind of quite basic level
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
uh, and also even activists and activist groups who proclaim that they're for abolition unfortunately talk about welfare a lot. I
You're right.
think sometimes without realizing it.
Yeah. But even me, I'm doing this mistake. The other day, I was
Mm-hmm.
in a vegan market, and I saw a sticker, and I said, "I'm going to buy this sticker to put it in my on my new car." But the sticker, it's saying in Spanish, "Go vegan," and it's something I don't believe. And now I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to put this sticker. Why did I even buy it?
Yeah.
Because this "Go vegan" thing has been like a brainwashing in the beginning of the activism.
Hmm.
And you have to think twice.
So, why do you think then that go vegan isn't a good call to action?
Yeah, the big the big issue of the
Mm-hmm.
days.
Yeah.
Because when we say to someone go vegan, we don't speak about the animals. Basically, we just tell them to change lifestyle. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
behind that, it's that now, from now on, whatever you are buying, you have to ask if it's vegan. But it's
Mm-hmm.
true that if someone is asking, for example, why don't you eat this? And you say, because I'm vegan. Okay, someone may say, what is vegan? Or someone may not say anything. But if you say, because I love animals, the conversation will start. What do you
Mm-hmm.
mean? I also love animals. Yeah, but if you love animals, you don't eat them. But what do you mean? And then the whole story starts. If you
Mm-hmm.
say go vegan and what you ask people to do is just to change lifestyle. We have seen it already that this is only in the Western world. So this is the Western bubble. So we are changing ourselves. We are all happy because we are more and merrier and more vegan products. And then how many animals are killed? More of
Mm-hmm.
them. How many animals are raised? More of them. So there is something wrong. What's something wrong? We have to think about that. It's overpopulation. Is that the animals that are killed now, they are going to Asia or to Africa? It is capitalism in one word.
mm,
So we have to think how we can change this, how we can stop this. And we cannot, if we say all the time, go vegan, then you see people, look, I found this new vegan product. Who made this vegan product? The
mm,
company that is killing animals. So you are giving money to them, okay?
mm,
And they keep killing animals, but they have also something for you. So they didn't lose you
mm.
as a client. Are we
Yeah.
saving animals? No.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with most of that. Um,
And it's very frustrating, very,
mm.
very sad. You feel helpless at some point.
Yeah, I mean, also like the go vegan thing, it doesn't have a strategy if all we're trying to do is get people to make a personal transformation, which is actually also very hard because, um, like, the people transform or into this other lifestyle in so many different ways, and that there's so many like different levels of like purity and things like that that
Mm,
confuses people, and then we end up all talking about, can I eat this, can I eat that, what about
mm,
can I go to this shop and buy these things, and
yeah,
yeah, so I know what you mean. It all becomes kind of diet and lifestyle focused.
yeah.
The other thing is that the messaging a lot of the time is, it kind of keeps the animals as cute. Like we always see things about, like cows. People say pigs are just pink puppies,
Mm, yeah.
and cows are cute. These kind of things that I really think aren't helpful, because we're not talking about the kind of, well, we're not talking about justice. We're talking about, don't be cruel to that cute animal.
Mm,
And the way you can do it is by just buying different stuff, but from the exact same place where you've always been shopping.
yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And the thing is that the ideal world for an anti-speciesist is that we no longer have any domesticated animal. Okay.
Mm,
But this is very contradicted with the life of the majority of vegan people.
mm,
And you cannot even blame them, because if you see people who are feeding tens of
mm,
cats, you cannot expect them to feed them with vegan cat food, which is so expensive. Okay.
mm,
And also, for example, I have a follower who is from Syria. He is living in Syria. He never left from there. And he's taking care of, I don't know how many, but many, many cats. And he's giving them raw meat. He's not vegan.
mm,
Okay. But how can I expect him to be able in Syria to buy vegan cat food to feed 20, 30, 40? This is not possible. This is not sustainable.
mm,
So the thing is that even if people are vegan, they are so also focused on sterilize the animals and what are we going to give them? Are we going to give them vegan food or non-vegan food? But we never think of advocating for not owing any animal. We never see
mm,
campaigns that dogs and cats should never be in, in the
mhm,
apartments or has anyone thought how normal it is to decide what the animal will eat, which time, when they will go for their
mm,
needs, where, and and then all the behind stuff about medication and vaccines. All of that again is a part of capitalism, and we are hurting some animals in order to keep taking care other animals.
mm.
It's a spiral.
Yeah, definitely. So with the companion animals, yeah, that's so complex. I wonder if I've thought this before. Why don't we see organizations or groups saying, "Okay, abolish pets"? And
Hmm.
my thinking is that probably it would come across to the public. I'm just thinking of the UK now, who's supposedly we're a nation of animal lovers. So many people have
Hmm.
pets and so on. People are kind of totally irrational about their pets. Um, yeah, but at the same time, if the dog gets a bit too old and the vet's too expensive, people put the pet down. So
Hmm.
anyway, but if vegans are already seen as kind of extreme in their views, would it come across as, wow, now they want to ban pets? So these
Yeah.
people, do they hate animals? Like,
Yeah.
would you want cats to go extinct? To which my answer would be yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yes.
but yeah. So maybe I don't know. Maybe that's something to do with it. But actually, the real message should be to, or I guess there's variations on this, but the way I'm thinking right now is abolish animal use,
Hmm.
and that would include companion animals,
Yeah.
and it would include, yeah. I mean, people would then start picking apart the word use. Well, what does it mean if can we use, like obviously, would bees in the wild then be used to pollinate our crops? Is that use if they're living free?
But
I don't know.
well, that, some people can say that if I'm adopting an animal from the street, I'm not using. First of all, this is one
Hmm.
argument, and it's true that we are not using them when we are adopting them. But the thing is just to, not forgetting the goal, which is the ultimate goal. This is the most important. Not let ourselves get lost in the adoption and sterilization and all that. Of course, as long as they are there, we will be adopting them and taking care of them, but in what cost? This is something we have to always remember. And yeah, what you said is really true. If anyone listened to
Hmm.
anti-species is saying, yeah, no more dogs, no more cats. And even if you ask me, how can you
Hmm.
imagine a world without connection with animals? I could tell you that maybe the world would be empty for me because I'm living with two dogs and one cat, and I'm going at a sanctuary once a week, and my whole life has been to, close to animals. But this is selfish if I say to you, no, I don't want it to stop. I don't want to
Hmm.
take care of animals because it makes me feel good. I do it because I think that it's my duty. Of course, it also makes me feel good. But I'm really dreaming of a world that I will wake up one day and I will not have to be an activist for anything. can be
Hmm.
can this world exist? I mean,
Hmm.
no, I know it can't. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's sad and complicated, the whole story.
Hmm. But yeah, I suppose what you're saying is we have to keep that goal in mind, that what is the ultimate goal? Because go vegan is just a tactic,
Yeah.
and but it's not the goal, because even if you got the whole world to go vegan, well, would there be a lot of vegans with cats and dogs still?
Yes, and also there is a conversation about this specific cats and dogs, specifically dogs, I would say, because there are
Mm-hmm.
people who need them. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
then we have to talk about disabled people who need the dogs, and there is a very big conversation on that. And
Mm-hmm.
me, as Elizabeth, I would say that if we could stop all the breeding, and maybe only if everyone has a vegan concept in their mind, and it's very very limited to leave some animals to you know have some descendants in order to help these people, maybe I could talk about it. But I can, the same moment I'm saying this, I'm thinking that it's still something that we allow the use to continue.
Mm-hmm.
But we cannot be we cannot be, no, they don't have the
Mm-hmm.
right, no, we should abolish dogs. And there are some areas that are gray. So there is a gray
Mm-hmm.
area about the dog therapy. There is a gray area about what are we feeding carnivores in rescue centers. There is a gray area about if the vegan cat food is 100% safe for male cats. Okay, we don't know everything for
Mm-hmm.
everything, and we have to remember that we cannot be sure about all. We are trying our best.
Mm. Yeah, that's well said, because we are unfortunately at a point in the animal rights, or actually, I'm not going to call it that, the vegan movement, where certain groups and certain people are so incredibly sure
Yeah.
about what they think
Mm.
is right.
Mhm.
And when faced with questions about it, they refuse to change their position. And I think it's kind of something really prevalent among vegans, is because you've taken that step to become you know that the right thing is not to eat animals and
Mhm.
their products, sorry, not products, their secretions,
Yeah.
um, that you become like so sure of yourself because you know that you're morally doing the right thing. But like you say, then all these gray areas come up that we don't always, that it's going to take, there's maybe, it's very difficult to find that answer. And being so sure that you're right, I think, is maybe a sign that you're not thinking about things enough.
Yeah, I think this is a sign of arrogance also, maybe.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
We we need to keep ourselves some humility. Humility is very
Mm.
important, and you don't find it very often in the movement, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.